to you about pennies today. Before we begin, I want to ask a simple question. On a regular basis, how many of y'all would say you use pennies to make transactions? Maybe weekly. Anybody, you show of hands, uses pennies to buy things? All right, we got one. It's like not many of y'all. I don't either. Which is why I want to talk to y'all about the benefits of actually eliminating the penny altogether. So the penny is a part of the monetary system, and according to Greg Mankiw, who was a former economic advisor to the White House, the purpose of the monetary system is to facilitate exchange. The penny no longer serves that purpose. When people start leaving the monetary unit at the cash register for the next customer, the unit is too small to be useful. And this makes sense because in our free market economy, a consumer should be able to take all of the money he has, whatever legal tender he has in any form, and if he chooses to, spend all of it. And you can't really do that with pennies anymore. It's not like that. If you have 100 pennies, you can't really take it to a vending machine and buy anything because they'd rather not have your business. And a lot of these pennies actually, as bizarre as they're ending up in Coinstars, which is kind of a ludicrous idea if you think about it. We're paying this company to take our money and give us back a little bit less, but the money was just so inconvenient to us that we wanted less. And the big problem with this is the value of the penny has become so small. With inflation over the past 50 years, it's become very impractical to expect to use pennies in anything that could be considered a serious purchase. And like I said, they're rarely found in any machines. You'd be hard-pressed to find one that'll take your pennies these days. And because these companies, it's cost too much to ship and count and just deal with these pennies at this point. In fact, according to Forbes magazine, in 1972, the penny was worth what a nickel is now. And what's crazy is if you look back in 1972, there wasn't anybody asking for a coin that was of a fifth of the value of a penny, but that's what it equates to today. So I'll start with, I have a video here about cost of a penny.
Nadex Binary Options. Never heard of them? Maybe heard of them. You're not.
Currently, it costs more than a penny to produce a single penny. Each penny costs 1.6 cents to make, meaning the U.S. Mint loses money with each penny made. In 2013, the U.S. Mint lost $55 million in penny production. This is because 97% of a penny is comprised of zinc, and currently, zinc is costly because of limited supplies and high demand. In 2014, the supply of zinc is projected to fall short of its demand for the first time since 2007. President Obama has suggested multiple times that the penny, along with the nickel, be phased out of monetary circulation. One reason the penny is still in circulation is due to the economic repercussions that would follow its demise. These include changing prices for products, as well as different services, such as municipal parking fees. Of course, there is also the impact of sales tax on the final price. Using a different metal to make the coins has been suggested, but a spokesperson for the U.S. Mint has said that it wouldn't make a difference in cost. While many Americans appear to agree with getting rid of the penny, it seems others are so set in their ways it's nearly impossible to introduce a changing currency, as is seen with dollar coins.
Okay, so he talked about in that how it's become increasingly expensive to produce pennies, and he also covered how some still reasons people want to keep it around, but we'll cover that later. And also, according to PBS, since 2000, over 20% of our pennies have fallen completely out of
Hello,
circulation.
and welcome to Coin Study. This video shows you how to...
Okay. Since 2000, over 20% of the pennies have fallen out of circulation, and this is because consumers are going into retail stores and using cash to pay for things and receiving pennies. And a huge amount of these pennies they're receiving are not being used in the future to make more purchases, and so a lot of them are just falling out of circulation completely. And when this happens, of course, the retailers have to have the pennies to give to you, and the U.S. Mint has to overproduce pennies just to have enough to provide the demand. And this isn't good because, like it said in the video, a penny can cost between 1.5 and 2.4 cents to produce, just depending on prices of the raw materials. And that really adds up. For example, in 2012, the U.S. Mint spent $117 million making only $50 million worth of pennies. So this is a chart coming from Wall Street Journal showing the orange line on the left side is the amount of pennies we produce compared to all the other coins, and it's shown the past 14 years it's been pretty ridiculously high compared to others, while the price of it has also increased and has stayed above 1 cent, so we're losing money every time we're making these pennies. And so this idea of dropping the penny and rounding your transactions to the nearest fifth cent has worked in the past. And actually Canada did it in 2012. And according to the Huffington Post, there's been no recognizable backlash or inflation due to that implementation that's been recorded. Also, back in 1857, the USA actually dropped the half-cent coin and stopped producing it. And what's interesting is it would be worth 11 cents today when they dropped it then. Also, according to the Courier Express, the U.S. military stopped using pennies over 30 years ago because they're just too expensive to move and they're too large in volume and weight to be worthwhile for purchases. So if there's always reason to kill a penny, why haven't we gotten rid of it yet? And the biggest reason I'd say is the status quo. We're all used to pennies. We're all pretty apathetic towards pennies. They've always been there, and we always kind of assume they always would be, I guess. And also, there's a lot of backlash from the older generations, who are typically more traditional people that like to pay for their things with the penny on the dollar. And like I said in the video, it talked about the fear of an economic backlash due to the rounding to the 5th cent, because there was worry that there'd be inflation and customers would end up paying eventually more in general for their products. But actually, according to a study of over like 200,000 transactions done by Dr. Waples of Wake Forest, he found that if you were to take these transactions and round them to the nearest 5th cent, typically on average, a customer can expect to make 1 cent every 40 transactions. So it's negligible. In other words, you break even when you're rounding to the 5th cent, which is idealistic for a transaction. So in conclusion, pennies are obsolete, and I move that we get rid of them in America because they are too inflated at this point and almost worthless, and it doesn't seem like it's going to slow down. And they're becoming increasingly expensive to make as zinc prices rise. And they're also falling out of circulation regularly because we're getting them from retailers and then not using them as consumers. And they're just a hassle to use generally, obviously. You're not going to get a bag of 2,000 pennies and go to the store and try and spend it. Thank you for your time.